Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everything Life Coaching. I am Noelle Cordeaux. I am one of the founders of Lumia Coaching. I'm the head squirrel wrangler at Lumia Coaching. And with me today is a fellow squirrel wrangler, one of our beloved Lumia instructors, my friend. We are having a great laugh right before our recording started. Danielle, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I am incredibly well.
Excellent. Excellent. We have been laughing because we've come together to record a really important talk on burnout. And every time we get together and attempt to start recording, some facet of modern life just throws stakes and daggers and lightning rods into our experience. And so I think that we're in an appropriate space to really kick this off.
I think so for sure. The only thing that can stop us now is a UPS delivery.
That is so true. That is so true. All right. So we got into this topic because we had a fantastic virtual coffee in the new year and really shared with each other that this year, January 2026, doesn't feel like a typical new year, new you. Folks are just sludgy, beat up in 25 different directions. Everybody's cranky. It's cold. Weather's been shit. This has not been a fun start to the year for so many reasons. And yet we need to go on with our lives anyway and
Yeah.
find our joy anyway. So, Danielle, kick it over to you. What do you see from the lens of your world?
A lot of the same, I mean, other than the like wretched weather, which seems to have now blanketed the globe, people just are not in this headspace of being excited to start anew.
Yeah.
I mean, I get not being excited about starting resolutions, but I just see less zeal in people wanting to set goals or look at the year ahead. So it's hitting a lot of people.
It is, and it's relatively systemic. I mean, we've been hearing from my work, from your work, all corners of the work world that burnout has reached epidemic proportions, and this is a space that you work in heavily. What are you seeing boots on the ground, intra organizationally or interpersonally?
Definitely a lot of that too, where people at this point are doing the work of many, right? I mean, because we know that staffing has been a particular challenge. We know that a lot of organizations have been impacted by changes in their funding sources. And, there's just this sort of universal dread, like the sense of not to be all doom and gloom,
No.
but it's a lot of things. Like everything is just happening at once.
Yeah, it's true. And you popped in my office hours last night. One of the things that we're seeing is more and more our Lumia graduates are working on coaching platforms where they're hired by third parties to coach people in organizations, and never fails. Somebody will come to office hours with a question: How do I handle this? How do I handle a situation where there is more work than can possibly be done? There are no magic time management tools that are going to help people find their way out of this. And I think, coaches and clients alike are really feeling it right now.
I definitely agree. I think that there's also, I knew he would do that. He had to shake himself. Sorry, Amanda. I think that people right now are in this space where they are trying to do everything that they can, right? But organizations are just putting more and more on them. So we're seeing that. And the people who are getting coaches through coaching platforms are coming to their coaches, I think, with a lot of the same, where they finally have support and they are at their wits' end with very little outside resource to do anything about it.
Yes, yes. What came to mind when I was researching this topic was some work that I did previously on toxic positivity and its historical roots and origins. And I was really thinking of the phrase that caught wind, caught fire, became a meme in so many spaces: keep calm and carry on. That was a piece of propaganda that was put forth by the British government during World War II. Wow, England was having the bejesus bombed out of it. And the message was keep calm and carry on. And I think for so many folks, that's a lot of the sentiment of expectation that's being passed down, and it's not working.
It's really it's not. And I'm so glad that you brought up the keep calm and carry on, because yeah, that the historical, implication of that, really puts it into context for people, because moving on is not just bypassing the pain. It's about how you show up in relationship with it, with your life, and finding the sort of coexistence between them.
Yeah. Right before we hopped on, I was participating in an industry think tank discussion with some ed tech leaders and Texas A&M University and educational platform leaders. And the topic was about the fact that there needs to be massive reskilling leading into 2030, and that if we're looking at the current generation that's being trained in this in our current workforce, a lot of traditional degrees, traditional educational outlets are siloed, and individuals are simply not being equipped with real world resilience skills, which require out of the box thinking, second order thinking, being able to have a growth mindset, being able to harness additional possibilities, being able to pull in joy, gratitude, love, in order to expand your emotional repertoire. All of the things that you learn in coach training, essentially, coach training for all is my message to the universe right now. But this is, I think, pretty big deal when we're saying, okay, are we truly equipped as humans right now to foster resilience in the ways that we need to?
That's a really good question, because my instant go to answer is yes, we are equipped. However, do we believe that we are?
Ooh, say more.
Because people don't necessarily have, and maybe haven't been given permission to have, the belief system that they are already equipped with the ability to navigate these types of situations in an effective way. It's because people have been taught all kinds of other coping mechanisms instead of resilience, right? I mean, because those things sound like they're similar, but they're really not. They're different chairs.
They are different chairs. They are different chairs. And I think, too, metaphorically, I'm thinking a lot about different boxes and different systems and different structures that people house their emotional and intellectual lives within, whether it's a family system or a structure, or a work system or a structure. When we were preparing for this, one of the things that I looked at was the history of burnout. I wanted to understand where that word came from so that we could really put it in context, against other historical times like keep calm, carry on. And burnout was coined in the 1970s in a clinical and workplace context, who described, there was a psychologist, Herbert Freudenberger, who described staff burnout in 1974 based on observation of exhaustion and loss of motivation among helping professionals. That reminded me of a lot of the laboratory tests that were done on mice that and dogs, that lose their motivation when they just believe they can't get out of the crate or their situation, or the frogs that will sit, very nicely in these beautiful warm tubs and aren't aware that they're boiling. And I was like, holy shit, is this what the modern workforce has done to us?
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, well, this is not new. Since the millennia, folks have been in really difficult situations. And so then I did a dive on, like, okay, yes, World War II, where burnout, as we know it today in a professional context, had a similar way of being, and this was shell shock and
Yeah.
combat fatigue. And again, it was emotional exhaustion, withdrawal, cognitive overload, a loss of functioning after prolonged stress. However, the key difference was that this was acute trauma rather than chronic depletion. And during World War II, this was a period of time, especially post World War II, where society was rebuilding, and any way of coping was seen as a moral weakness. I think, though, the takeaway is that humans break under sustained stress, similar in World War One. And then I wanted to go a little bit further and say, okay, so we have these circumstances we can't escape from. In 2026, it seems to be our lives, the world of work. World War II, World War One, obviously these were wars. People were subject to them because their governments took them into war.
Right.
Then I looked at working class, racialized populations in the Jim Crow era. And there was something called John Henryism that represents the experience of Black Americans during and after Jim Crow. And this was described as a high effort coping style marked by relentless striving, self suppression, and overwork in the face of structural racism and limited reward. And this really just, knocked me down in terms of thinking about this phenomenon, and as a human society, what we have to grapple with historically. When I mirror this back, what comes up for you?
Of these, of course, John Henryism jumps out at me because I've worked in many different work environments. Uh, you know, it's one of these things where I remember the phrase that some of us in my organization used to say, especially amongst people of color, and that was, I'm really ready to get off the plantation now.
Mm,
Where it was an expression of this level of burnout, or the overexertion of a certain group of people, and where we realize that burnout language historically has been centered around privileged workers. John Henryism has this ability to name the cost for people who don't always feel like they have the option to disengage, right? I mean, people in that time did not have the option to disengage. So that really struck me because, of course, through war times and shell shock, and you can see this thread of trauma that is tied to these groups.
yes, and even more largely, the willingness of society to impose chronic stress and trauma on folks for diverse and nefarious reasons.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, this is an uplifting podcast.
Yes.
It is. Now, there's a really cool book called The Art of Insubordination. It's by Todd Kashdan. He's a graduate of the Penn Masters of Applied Positive Psychology program. And he talks about what is psychologically required to sidestep these phenomenons. And he looks a lot at in group, out group. and how to foster second order thinking, which is basically allowing your brain to step outside of a system. Because so many of us are willing to believe that if we are within a system that harms us, as long as we know the rules and play by the rules of that system, we will somehow be safe. And we know that's not true. We know that's not how it works. We're seeing it with our own eyes right now.
Right.
So, what is actually required to step outside of a system and begin thinking of new ways of doing things? And this is the question I want to crack today is, when we say essentially, and it's true, we all need to keep calm and carry on anyway, and how do we do it? How do we begin to pick up the pieces? How do we begin to innovate as we as coaches know fundamentally how to do? um, where would you start?
Oh gosh. I mean, in the how, I really think that there's such a big piece that depends on the person, right? I mean, even if we can apply the evolution of burnout itself through so many different lenses, right, to so many different groups of people, marginalized or not, the how is very nuanced in a sense, right? Because um, it's sort of this idea of keep calm looks like what? Right?
Mhm.
Carry on looks like what? So I think that, it could be really different for you, for me, for anyone.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And for me, the keep calm part has to do with protecting my mind and my spirit, where my physical body and my brain are my strongest assets. And if I allow myself to descend into negativity, negative thinking, negative loops, rumination, fear, I cripple myself. If I allow my brain to slide into future thinking, gratitude, resourcing myself emotionally, intellectually, um, nourishing my body, getting my body strong, then I'm positioning myself to at least have the foundation for future building.
Mhm. I take a cue from my dog, and that I say this and it sounds silly, and at the same time, I'm like, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like sometimes we just have to take cues from nature in certain things, right? Like winter months, what happens? Your trees and your flowers go dormant, because they're recharging for the spring so that they can bloom forth. I take notes from my dog sometimes, and it really strikes me because I will disclose that he is a rescue, right? So he's a rescue guy, and therefore he has experienced some things. We don't know what, but every now and then, as we've gotten to know him and he's gotten to know us over the years, we discover, hey, okay, that was a sore spot for you, right? You referred to, burnout in a sense, and the way that dogs recover from it. We see that. I mean, dogs are the best leadership teachers, by the way. And, I have a tendency to refer to it, don't get me, PETA, to kick dog syndrome, you know, to kick dog syndrome, where you see them revisit that fear or revisit that trauma in a moment, and it's like it's something, it reads across their eyes, and I
Mm.
see this with people sometimes. So I take a cue from nature in that when he's having an anxious moment or he is uncomfortable with the situation or extremely happy, right? Hard to tell them apart, but both can be true. He has a Zoomy, right?
Yeah.
So he has a Zoomy. And for those of you who don't know, Zoomies are when your four-legged animal or your four-legged friend just absolutely loses their shit and will work themselves into a pattern of going around in a circle. It's actually a reset for them, right? It's a reset for them. So for me, I'm like, okay, how do I get a Zoomy? Like, what do I need to do to kind of like work this out? And it tends to be more somatic in nature, but it is kind of like the shaking things off, or, getting a good cleansing breath, right? So that I can sort of ground myself and get back to my center where I can reconnect with laughter, or I can just be a little more present in mind, right? So that I can put forth effort into those tasks and those strategies where I can say, okay, I'm going to drink some water.
Yes.
you know, Let me grab my ashwagandha gummies,
Yes.
whatever that is.
Yes. And, as we're talking, I mean, I love, first of all, dogs as leadership models. Brilliant. And then thinking about what we can do in our everyday lives to be leaders with a lowercase L on this front. Um, you and I, and I've so appreciated this about our relationship, have been able to be really honest with each other when there have been years, periods of years that have been a shit show.
Oh yeah.
And to completely normalize the wear, tear, and strain of the business of being a human, and without judgment, acknowledge that that's normal. And we're both still brilliant and capable and competent and show up as our best selves when it's time to work. And yet, there is the shit show on the side.
Absolutely. Like sometimes that's the backup dancer, like everybody give it up for the shit show dancers, like it's just, some people have a certain amount of levity about it where, you can understand that that's the balance of life, right? Like you can't have the sweet without the sour, or the spicy, or you can't have the brilliant moments of joy and exuberance without having moments of trial and grief. So finding the spaces where those things can coexist, where both can be true without depleting or draining your life force, right?
Yes.
Is the goal.
It is the goal. It is the goal. And then, we do have that life force. And as coaches, as we train coaches, we know that one of the number one ways to combat anxiety is to make a plan and take one small step. That can do more to alleviate anxiety than most things. We know burnout can literally be combated by exercise. We know that folks can't be happy all the time. And so we become expert at, holding space for people in different ways. And yet we all do need to, and we have a responsibility to live our one precious life with gusto in the way of our choosing. And that's at its core, what coaching is about is the singular belief that we all have a fundamental right to live fully into our lives.
Yeah.
How do we do it when we're on our knees?
you know, it's one of those things where if you're on your knees, you're still not completely down,
Yes.
right?
True.
I mean, right? I mean, hey, listen. And listen, I'm at the age in life that if I can get down on my knees and get back up, it's a good day. Okay. Spoken like a true forward track person. Like I ran track. I'm like, my knees are still allowing me to get back up. Guess what? That's news.
Yes.
right? So how to do it is kind of to accept like, hey, all right, I'm on my knees. I have two options here,
Mhm.
right? And choosing it actually helps to reignite your will center,
Mhm.
right? Like I will lie down at this point. I'm on my knees and I'm going to lie down. Fine. Or I'm on my knees and what I need is to stand up, and maybe standing up isn't about getting all the way up on 2 feet and doing, a jump and a punch in the air. Like we don't have to go that far, right? Even metaphorically. But it's okay, just get up a little bit. How do you get up? Like for me, that looks like it does look like laughter often, because when I can laugh at things, it does two things for me. It just helps me to reconnect a little bit with my will center, because it's a choice to find things funny, like truly funny. And to be funny is also a choice, right? It's a gift for many, but it's a choice to get there. And then the second thing that does is introduces fresh oxygen into my lungs.
Yes.
So there is that component too, where I can say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's right, I'm breathing. If I can breathe, I can laugh, and if I can laugh, I can breathe. And it's that sort of check in.
Yeah. And what I'm noticing about your beautiful share is is the turn towards that which is life-giving, that which is life-affirming, really turning towards, in positive psychology, positive emotion, and using the positive emotion that we can experience through breath, through laughter, to get our endocrine system pumping with oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. So as basic and fundamental as breathing, laughing may sound, it packs a really heavy neurobiological punch that can change the chemical landscape of our brains.
I do want to caution one thing though,
Yes.
right? Which is toxic positivity.
Yes.
Because you mentioned it, and I have a thing about this, because you may have heard me say, and I've probably said this in more classes than I should admit to, but I'll admit I don't fart rainbows, right? Which is something that my nana said, I think maybe once, and I caught it and I never forgot it, and I was like, this is brilliant. And what it means is simply that it's not about being like that rainbow farting unicorn, or there are different phrases for it, but it's that toxic positivity where it's just like, oh no, I'm gonna take bullshit in but give you a rainbow and I smile and laugh. And no, it's not that. It's being able to connect with the genuine feeling of joy, or release, and being able to accept that portion of it, not the performance.
No. Yeah.
Toxic positivity is a lot of performance, where we feel like it will be better for everyone else if I smile and I laugh and I go on as if. And that's different.
Yeah, I agree. And I also see toxic positivity creep up in terms of bypassing, when things actually suck. And, when the response should not be, just keep your chin up. The response should be, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that literally sucks. Like, I'm sorry. And just hold fucking space
Yeah.
for a minute for somebody else's pain, because keeping their chin up really isn't going to solve anything in the moment.
Nope. It won't.
What I'm noticing about this interplay is its relational quality, and how we have a responsibility to hold awareness of how we churn through relationships, how we portray, how we respond, how we react, how we show up, whether this is online, in person, in small groups, in our personal life, in our professional life. And sometimes I think if we're really going back to basics, the very fundamental precept of other people matter is a good place to start. You are an instructor in our beautiful community where we're so lucky to have so much care that comes into this space every day. How do you see this manifest when this is like really what Lumia is made of, the fact that other people matter?
Oh my gosh. You know, it's fascinating to watch because, even on Zoom or on screens and on social media, we see these glimmers of humanity where, someone will reach out or check back on someone, or they will hold their hand up in a class and say, hang on a second, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge this person's experience,
Yes.
or they'll do it in the chat. And you just see that, or the reactions of the hearts. And, as much as that may seem sort of trivial, it's the building on that connection between people. I catch myself doing it because I am a coach, and I have a tendency to be a caregiver in certain respects, but it's that text, like the follow up to hearing something difficult from someone, right? Hey, it's a new day today. How are you feeling, right? Or hey, you said you were going to work harder at having breakfast. How's that yogurt this morning? Like teeny tiny milliseconds, right? Like it just takes seconds.
Yes. And this is accessible and it's free to all of us. So, just kind of collecting where we're going here. It's the foundational, if you're on your knees, do you want to lie down? Do you want to get up? Can you breathe? Can you laugh? Are there other people around you that you can altruistically acknowledge, reach out to, hold space for, check in on? And then it comes down to that personal responsibility of once we're off our knees, what are we going to do with our time? I know that you and I don't have lofty goals for the new year. You want to form a relationship with basements, which I want to hear more about. And I want to get to know my neighbors so that I have more interpersonal exchanges on a daily basis. And this is coming from to people who work, live, and eat and breathe the science of goal accomplishment. And folks, this is it. This is what we're trying to do right now. So, where did your goal come from, and how's it going?
It's funny. So it came from me canceling my gym membership, not last August, but the August before that in 2024, right? Because I had very, very, intentional and thoughtful ideas of taking my mom to the gym because, I have a merged household. And I found that every time I would go to take my mom to the gym, I was like, I love having my mom around. And I love how much she liked using the hip abductor machine. They call it like the good girl, bad girl. As much as that's funny and gave me a laugh, I really found it inconvenient to like stop what I was doing in the middle of the day because my mom is not an early morning gym person. Neither am I. And it was just one of these things like this isn't working anymore. So I shut down the gym membership thing and then committed to creating a gym in my basement. It didn't really fully come together as quickly as I thought it would. However, now it is in a better space because I have to admit it's one of those habits that I haven't really fully formed, and I want the habit. I want the habit, right? But I'm just like on my knees as far as like, this is as far as I can get, right? So I finally am at the space of, okay, I'm getting up, I'm standing up. Yes, we have like the weight rack and the bench and like all of the things. And now we're in the space of using the actual things because my basement is not a sexy place. It's not. It's not. There's a workbench in there. It doesn't feel like a gym environment, but it's now come to a space where I'm like, no, this is doable, right? So I guess I'm doing a better job now of asking myself who I'm becoming
Yeah.
by being better at working out in my gym, in my basement.
I have a really weird metaphor. I'm just gonna drop it. True coaching style, take it or leave it.
Let's
No
do
attachment to how this is received. So in my private practice, one of the things I do is non-traditional relationships. And at times I have worked with a BDSM space, and there's a recommendation. Like if you're going to use articles or items that you're unfamiliar with, like leather or chains, that you live with those items to get used to the way they feel, to their texture, to their, so on and so forth. So it sounds like you're kind of doing the same thing with your basement, with a sensory experience of
it.
getting used to the space and the sensations.
Yes. I'm running with this now. I'm like, if this isn't a better metaphor, right, for using the gym, oh, I love it. Because, yeah, I mean, in a way, it's sort of what it intrigues you. It piques your interest, right? Being able to kind of acclimate to the space, to the item, to the touch and the feel of it. That's totally what's happening.
Yeah.
Don't tell my mom.
Come on. No, not there. I'm having a similar experience interpersonally. So I've been pretty transparent with you, with lots of folks in my life. The last year, 2 years, maybe 3 years have been like shit show city with the background dancers and the whole 9 yards. And I was in a place where like I would be walking through my building or the streets. I didn't want to make eye contact with people. If I talked to folks, I might just cry. Like I was not okay. And so as I'm starting to feel myself emerging from that space, starting to practice talking to strangers again is something that I'm coming back to. It's a part of me that has been dormant for a while. And I'm really having to work with the sensory experience of like being in the elevator, striking up a conversation, stepping out of my comfort zone, offering help and support. Like if I see somebody moving, do you need a hand with the boxes? Do you need a ladder? And just really kind of digging into those micro moments of engagement, almost for emotional interval training, to push myself out and then pull back in again so that I can very slowly be discerning in the relationships that I'm building, number one. And number two, to have the experience of being neighborly in a city that is foreign for our time,
Mhm.
genuinely foreign.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
And I'm willing to answer it also, just to be fair. But who are you becoming as you're doing this?
Oh, I love that question. I love coaches so much, just for the record. Um, who I'm becoming, I think is the version of myself that is an authentic elder in my community. That I am a person who brings food. I am a person who gives good advice. I'm a person who has a ladder, has a lot of tools. I'm 45. Like I've lived a life. Like I have all the shit you need in my house. Like like I'm like there are two wonderful 20 somethings who kind of are adjacent to my apartment. Nobody has a baking tin, nobody has a rolling pin. So folks are in and out of my house for supplies. And it's been life-giving. I am, I think I'm becoming that person, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Who are you becoming?
I am becoming reconnected with my body, my 46-year-old body.
Ooh.
I'm like, oh, hi. I waited a long time for this, right? I mean, like I was twiggy. So I'm like, okay, let's reconnect. I'm reconnecting with my body. I am becoming more reliant on the ability to move, not just now, but for my future. And I'm becoming not a gym rat because I don't know that that is my ministry. I understand that. I'm becoming an example for my mom in
Mm,
that sense because now that this space is available and it's been created and cultivated, it can be shared, right? And it just flows better to be able to reset some of the ideologies of my mom's generation around movement and health for women, and shaking off some of those generalizations for black women particularly, where I can do all of those things and just connect with myself and my family. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
beautiful. Me too. I'm excited for you. We're going to have to do a part two towards the end of this year that's upon us and check in on who we've continued to evolve, into. And if folks want to hang out with either of us, you can find us at Lumia Coaching on the inside. Danielle, you also have a really amazing practice. What is your practice? Where can folks find you?
Thank you. I have my practice, Queen Suite Coaching. I can be found at queensuitecoach.com and on your social media platform of choice. I'm probably the most active on LinkedIn, Instagram, but I work as a leadership development coach, and I believe in working with people who are willing and ready to lead from the inside out,
Mm,
right? Starting with the first person who shows up in the mirror in the morning. So that's what I get up for every day.
that's awesome. And that's a testament to how you live your life, and just my observation of you as a stand-up human in the world. So thank you for that work that you do. I love that. And as we're closing out, I would just like this to be an invitation for folks to understand the history of the exhaustion that really hunts us all, and to go slow in your goal setting, and to go light in your goal setting, and to choose goals that are generative and accessible for you in the now. And if we can be models of that, the from the basement to the step ladder, there are ripples that are going to be created here, and those can't be denied.
Absolutely. The goal doesn't have to always be growth. It can be function.
Function. It can be. Amazing. Well, friend, this was super fun. We'll do it again. And I hope that you have a great day ahead. I'll catch you next time, and I'll see you in our hallways at Lumia.
Yes. Yes. We made it. We got through the whole thing.
We did. Huzzah! Huzzah! All right. I'll see you next time.
You too.